He was the Chiefs offensive coordinator for a team that won multiple Super Bowls. Sanders to sort of, show that he could do it without Patrick Mahomes. But UCLA clearly said to him that they did not want him back, otherwise they would have re-signed him.
We have a huge update on an individual that we haven't spoken about on this YouTube channel for quite some time, and it's a very unique topic because it gives you an idea of how much the narrative completely flipped on Eric Bieniemy. Before we get to the content, we are less than 19,000 subscribers away from 1 million subscribers, which is a monumental achievement for us on this YouTube channel. If you want to help us get there, make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications to help this channel grow. And now that we get all that out of the way, work! We had so much success on Thanksgiving with the Prize Picks free square. If you followed me on Instagram, then you would have seen my pick of Tyreek Hill, Jonnu Smith, and David Montgomery, which hit for a 5x return. Our square of Josh Jacobs and Devon Achane also converted. And my favorite part about this is getting DMs like this. One of my followers made $225 out of my picks on Thanksgiving. And I got many more DMs of you guys hitting with my picks as well. If you haven't signed up for Prize Picks, click on my link in the description or use my promo code Mikerophone to get $50 when you make an entry of $5 or more. We're going to be making picks for the rest of the season for the NBA and NFL, and I give away my picks for free on Instagram and Snapchat. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Eric Bieniemy had a very solid career in the NFL as a backup halfback for the most part, playing in the NFL for 9 seasons before deciding to try his hand at coaching. From there, he worked his way up from high school coach to running backs coach to assistant head coach to offensive coordinator for Colorado before joining the Kansas City Chiefs as a running backs coach in 2013 to 2017 before being presented with an opportunity of a lifetime. You see, in 2018, Matt Nagy, the existing offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, took a job with the Chicago Bears to become their head coach, which meant the offensive coordinator position was wide open. And this put the next offensive coordinator in a remarkable situation. The previous offensive coordinators always got head coaching jobs, whether it was Doug Peterson in the earlier part of the Andy Reid era, who took a job with the Philadelphia Eagles and even won a Super Bowl with them. So this position was clearly a position that eventually led to a head coaching gig, and Andy Reid chose Eric Bieniemy to be the next offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. But it got way better because in the past, Doug Peterson and Matt Nagy were both coaching Alex Smith, who was very prolific, don't get me wrong. He had a near MVP-like season in his final season for the Kansas City Chiefs. But now, the next offensive coordinator of the Chiefs got to coach Patrick Mahomes, who at the time wasn't the Patrick Mahomes that you know now. So it was truly a remarkable opportunity, and you really had to be lucky to be placed in this situation. You got to coach under one of the biggest offensive geniuses in the entire NFL. You got to coach the future face of the NFL, which many people didn't know was the future face of the NFL at the time. So you'd be credited for his success as well. And on top of that, the Chiefs had so many weapons offensively. You had Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt in his first stint with the Kansas City Chiefs. And well, the rest is history. Patrick Mahomes had the greatest first season under center for the Kansas City Chiefs in NFL history. Technically, he wasn't a rookie, but in his first full season as a starter in the NFL, the man threw for 50 touchdowns and over 5,000 passing yards. I mean, the Chiefs would lose to the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship, but what would follow is one of the most dominant runs we've ever seen, beating the San Francisco 49ers in Super Bowl Live, losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl after, but no one really blamed them for that because their offensive line was battered and bruised. They would lose to the Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC Championship following that, before beating the Philadelphia Eagles in the next Super Bowl. Prior to their Super Bowl victory against the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs' identity was very much build a team around Patrick Mahomes' arm, Andy Reid's offensive concepts, Tyreek Hill's speed, and leverage Travis Kelce's consistency and chemistry with Patrick Mahomes to score easy touchdowns touchdowns. So all of those came on the offensive side of the ball, which meant that the offensive coordinator was supposed to get a lot of the credit for their success. The thing is, that's not what would happen with Eric Bieniemy. Each and every offseason, Eric Bieniemy would be listed as a prime head coaching candidate, but he never would get the job, and many people were wondering why. Some sources suggested that Eric Bieniemy was terrible in interviews and just didn't seem like he'd be a good leader of men. But given the fact that Eric Bieniemy was a prime head coaching candidate from 2020 and on, that didn't stop a lot of people from saying stuff like this.
This is one of the most nakedly and obviously racist things that has happened in the last 15 years in the NFL. It was just now accepted that Bieniemy is going to have to go somewhere else to prove it. And it is an outrage.
And this is something that would continue on for all of Eric Bieniemy's career. I mean, it's not just Nick Wright that felt this way, by the way.
This is what it is with the NFL. When we talk about the goalpost moving for coaches of color, I don't want to hear about Eric Bieniemy interviewing well, as if he's the only one who doesn't interview well or isn't a consistent interview. This has been going on for too long. The league has taken steps to address it. It is up to the owners to get this right. Hopefully Washington gets this right with Bieniemy. He does a great job trying to figure out whoever his quarterback is going to be.
Every time a team had a dynamic quarterback and then decided to hire a brand new head coach, a lot of people would say stuff like this.
And then we see on the other side a guy like Eric Bieniemy, who's been to 5 AFC championships, also won 2 Super Bowls, and he's not necessarily up to snub to lead a locker room according to the executives, according to the owners. I don't want to be the guy that always has to bring up that black coaches are continually overlooked. I'm the guy that wants to bring up what are these other coaches doing that the African American and minority coaches aren't doing that's allowing them to get jobs, because it can no longer be about winning championships, because neither Shane Steichen nor Jonathan Gannon did that. But here we are 2 days after the game that they lost, by the way, and they now have head coaching jobs. All I'm asking is make it make sense.
Now, the way this aged was very interesting, because to give you an idea of how bizarre it got, look at some of these tweets over the Detroit Lions hire of their new head coach. A team hired Dan Campbell instead of Eric Bieniemy. Someone looked at Eric Bieniemy and then Dan Campbell, and then back at Eric Bieniemy, and then said Dan Campbell interviewed better. How the do we pass on Eric Bieniemy, then go and hire Dan Campbell? What's the story with Eric Bieniemy? You just have a secret deal with the Eagles or Texans? Because I can't imagine Dan Campbell being more qualified. And to be honest, there's a lot of legitimacy to these claims. You would think that being the offensive coordinator of the most prolific offense in the NFL would result in an automatic head coaching job. Now, first of all, I think time has told us that you really can't deny Dan Campbell probably having one of the greatest interviews of all time. I mean, we saw it in Hard Knocks. We enjoy watching him each and every week at post-game pressers, and he's had one hell of a track record as well. He's played for a legendary coach in Bill Parcells. He's won a Super Bowl with Sean Payton. He was a coaching intern with the Miami Dolphins in 2010, and then also coached under Sean Payton as an assistant head coach and a tight ends coach from 2016 to 2020. There's no denying the man had charisma, and given the situation that the Detroit Lions were in, which were dire circumstances, you clearly needed someone with a passion and a fire to come in if they really wanted to change the culture here, especially coming off the heels of the Matt Patricia era. Now, ultimately, this was the right hire, clearly, but it just gives you an idea of the mystery surrounding Eric Bieniemy. Why wasn't he getting a job? Well, other theories suggested that it was really Andy Reid calling the shots, and he just had Eric Bieniemy as a soundboard for the most part. Now, this is where things got very strange, because at a specific point, these rumors of Eric Bieniemy being a figurehead offensive coordinator that didn't really do much or contribute much to the Kansas City Chiefs offense really reached a breaking point following the Chiefs Super Bowl victory over the Philadelphia Eagles, where Eric Bieniemy came out and decided that he was going to take a job with the Washington Commanders. Now, this was a very bold decision, going from a team like the Kansas City Chiefs that had Patrick Mahomes, and yeah, sure, they lost Tyreek Hill, but clearly they were still winning games. Going from the best team in the AFC and a very safe job to being an offensive coordinator for a laughingstock franchise of the NFL was very bold, but Eric Bieniemy thought it was necessary in order to get a head coaching job. And Commanders fans were very optimistic about this, and a lot of his former players had a lot to say about it. On one hand, LaShawn McCoy absolutely hates Eric Bieniemy.
What's his value? What makes him a good offensive coordinator? See, the problem is a lot of these people that go on social media, oh, he should be the guy for the job. They haven't played there. They're not in the locker room. When the plays are designed, that's Andy Reid. But when I asked about Eric Bieniemy, what makes him good? But he has no real responsibility. Now you go from the Chiefs, where you can hide behind Patrick Mahomes.
And I think the insight he provided was very useful, primarily just so you can understand the type of coach Bieniemy is. But at the same time, this is coming from an individual that played a twilight year in Kansas City and was upset that he wasn't used more when he was on the Kansas City Chiefs, which I can understand because LaShawn McCoy was averaging 4.6 yards per carry, but you would think he'd have more gratitude for the team that gave him his first of 2 Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes would respond to LaShawn McCoy by saying this.
EB means the world to me, man. The way he holds me accountable, the way he makes me be great every single day, man. This man's one of a kind, man. He's one of the greatest.
And Eric Bieniemy handled it with class, which squashed all the suggestions that maybe Eric Bieniemy was a bad interview.
LaShawn McCoy is a future Hall of Fame runner. I think that's all I have to say because he's entitled to his own opinion. It does not impact me in any way. Because one thing that you learn when you're in this position, you have to learn to eliminate distractions. My job is to focus on the now. Everything outside these walls has no impact on Eric Bieniemy moving forward.
Tyreek Hill even praised Eric Bieniemy.
When I first got in the league, I was a running back, and EB coached running back. He made me understand who I was as a player. And to him, it's bigger than football. Like, playing football is part of the blessing. But outside of football, who you are as a person, how you carry yourself every day as a person, that's the message what he was delivering to me, dog. That made me realize who I was. That made me understand my true power. And truth be told, not a lot of people will understand EB as a coach.
But it didn't take very long before Eric Bieniemy got into some more trouble. Washington Commanders players apparently had trouble with the way Eric Bieniemy addressed them, and Ron Rivera even outed his offensive coordinator.
It's from the perspective he has. I appreciate it because we're out of our comfort zone. We're doing things a little bit differently, something that's been different.
Eric Bieniemy once again handled this really well.
My job is to be very observant. I got to know the people that I'm discussing and working with. So my job is to address. If there's something that they may have an issue with, please, let's discuss this. Here's the reason why I felt a certain way. Here's why I said it. We're in a grown man's business. We're in a grown man's world. I expect the effort to be a standard that's accepted by all of us. So when you're not reaching that, it's my job to address it. Because if I ain't doing my job, my ass get fired. It's my job and my responsibility to make sure that I'm getting our guys to do what I expect them to do.
But unfortunately for Bieniemy, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Going to play for the Washington Commanders when they were trying to get sold to be Ron Rivera's assistant head coach and offensive coordinator with a quarterback that definitely had some question marks around him wasn't the best idea. The Washington Commanders would go 4-13. Bieniemy's offense ranked 21st in average yards per game, and a brand new regime was brought in shortly after. Ron Rivera was fired, so was Eric Bieniemy, and in came Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. So Eric Bieniemy was a free agent. So he decided to return to a very familiar place, my alma mater, UCLA. He was named the associate head coach and offensive coordinator at UCLA, which once again was a very unique choice. UCLA isn't by any means a powerhouse team, and it definitely showed throughout the season. They finished 5-7 this season, ranking 117th in yards per game and 126th in points scored per game. So clearly Eric Bieniemy wasn't helping, and as a result, Eric Bieniemy has been fired. And the crazy thing about this is the way that he got fired is just so interesting. I mean, if you look at any legitimate source, they just say he was fired outright. But take a look at what Eric Bieniemy's agent has to say about the situation, saying Eric and UCLA UCLA mutually parted ways today as previously planned. He's still getting paid by the Commanders. After interviewing for head coaching jobs last year, he wanted to stay active and busy, so he decided to go help out Deshaun Foster, who's like his little brother at UCLA, as opposed to sitting out a year. The plan was always to return to the NFL in 2025, and he's looking forward to the opportunities ahead. So hold on, you expect me to believe that a head coach came up to Eric Bieniemy and said,
"Eric, please, we could really use your help after you led the Washington Commanders to the 21st best offense in the NFL. We know that you're still getting paid by the Washington Commanders. Please just come to UCLA for 1 year. Establish meaningful relationships with the players on the roster. Deshaun Foster is like your little brother, and he really looks up to you. Please come for 1 year, and then no matter what happens, return to the NFL. I'm begging you, Eric. We know you got some opportunities to be a head coach, especially after leading the Commanders to the 21st best offense in the NFL. Just come for a year and then return to the NFL in 2025.
I think this statement in of itself explains why Eric Bieniemy didn't get hired as a head coach. To be honest, he had me fooled in the very beginning. I mean, when they said that Andy Reid was carrying him on the Kansas City Chiefs, he tried to prove us wrong by going to the Washington Commanders, and that clearly didn't work. Then he decided to be the offensive coordinator of UCLA, and they had one of the worst offenses in college football. The way he handled this firing, the classy way to do it is just to thank the organization for the opportunity and that you look forward to any other opportunities you're provided in the future. If you handle the fact that things sometimes don't work out with class and grace, you'll typically get another opportunity. Just ask Cliff Kingsbury. All you do is thank the organization for the opportunity and move on. But going into this detail, saying that, hey, I originally had coaching jobs planned and I'm still getting paid by the Commanders, so I just wanted to stay active and busy. I don't need to know all of that, bro. And I think as a result of this, Eric Bieniemy may have ruined his own career. You take a look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and I don't imagine them welcoming him back. And it's nothing against Eric Bieniemy at all. It's just they got Matt Nagy back as their offensive coordinator. I don't think Matt Nagy's gonna leave unless if he gets the perfect head coaching job, but I also don't think any team is gonna be offering Matt Nagy a head coaching job anytime soon. Maybe if Joe Blameyer decides to leave as the passing game coordinator, maybe Bieniemy could find his way back, or maybe he could find himself there as an assistant to the running backs. But the job that he once had under Andy Reid is gone. And the thing is, I don't blame him for the philosophy. I don't blame him for trying to prove us wrong. I don't blame him for trying to go to the Washington Commanders. But the problem with the NFL is a lot of your success is dictated by picking the right situation for yourself. It's very rare to see a head coach go into a bad situation and automatically be able to turn that team around. We've seen it before. We've seen Sean McVay do it with the LA Rams. We've seen Kyle Shanahan do it with the San Francisco 49ers. But it's impossible to have success in the NFL if you're not placed in the best situation with great talent to carry you. And in the case of Eric Bieniemy, he was in the best possible situation to consistently be brought up as a potential head coaching candidate. I think if he waited long enough, eventually he would have gotten his coaching gig. Or maybe he wouldn't have, but at the very least, he'd be in a very successful culture and would be able to learn from one of the best. It's very difficult to know what you could have done differently because now Eric Bieniemy went from one of the top head coaching candidates in the NFL to an individual that'll be lucky to get an assistant job in the NFL. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about this storyline? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.